It's Paul here from the Off the Comma podcast. And if you've been following the podcast, you already know that it's about amazing human beings sharing amazing stories about their experience with being stuck and getting unstuck. And you've probably wondered, hey, whatever happened to that guest? What's happened since they were on the show? So that's what this is all about. We are checking in with various podcast guests and just taking 15 minutes to see what's going on in their world. So, deeper connection, learning more about our guests, seeing how life unfolds for them. Enjoy this conversation, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, we're back with another one of our Off the Comma podcast guest check-ins, and I'm super excited to be checking in with my friend Erin. Erin goes all the way back to last year, the first year of the podcast. She was episode 11. So if you haven't checked out Erin's original story, go back and listen to episode 11, and you'll get to hear a little bit about her talking about her experience with going out on her own and starting her own business and this kind of whole exploration of what that meant for her as a human and the experience of it all. So I'm going to stop rambling. Erin, good to see you.
Thanks,
Catch us
Paul.
up. How have
Yeah,
you
thanks.
been? What are you up to these days?
Great. Yeah, it's great to be here again. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, it's kind of what you mentioned, trying to manage the solo act, right? Like so many of us are doing, where you're always trying to think about creating new things that can help people out there, but then you go, oh, wait a minute, now I have to sell that thing, right? And so it's
Mhm.
always a job of many hats, which I enjoy a whole lot more than getting bored. So, it's worth it's worth the struggle to have something interesting to do every day, but it is sometimes a lot, as
Yeah.
a solo person or small business knows.
For sure, for sure. The self-management, there's all the uncertainty that comes with it, and yet the reward is also a huge payoff. So, but I
Right.
know, like in that vein, because you have continued to be like a badass boss and run your business and always creating things, as you said. I know you've had some things going on. So why don't you tell? I already know, so I'm in on the secret. Why don't you tell
Yes.
everybody what you have been up to recently?
I have created something, and not only that, I have finished it, right? That's
Ah,
often the
nice.
hardest part. And this was actually a project where I got to include other people. So very exciting, for someone who works alone. And it is the High Value Writing Workbook, right, for success
Nice.
in work and life that I created. It's a little bit like my book, where it explains a little bit about how to be clear and concise, but also how to build and manage relationships through writing. But now, you also get like 10 practice problems for every concept, lots of before and afters, lots of interaction, and even some links to videos. So it really is, I was trying to create a learning tool where we get to talk to one another.
Mm.
Kind of a weird idea for a book, right? But because there are QR codes to videos that align with the curriculum, someone could go on YouTube and leave me a question right on that video, and then I can answer them. So you can actually talk to the author slash teacher as you use the workbook. So that's
Y-
something I'm pretty pumped about.
That's cool. And I had the privilege of being able to see the workbook earlier, and that was one of the things that I was commenting to you about. I was like, dude, this is really cool that you put
Right?
the QR codes in, because it's like literally just finish the exercise and then scan it, and then boom, it pops you over to your YouTube channel. It's brilliant because, okay, like here's a real live conversation or example or video demonstration. It also like it keeps your YouTube channel active. And
Right.
it didn't even occur to me what you were just saying, which is, and you can message me. So that's so cool.
You can actually talk right to the author. Yeah. So I'm happy about that. And just trying to make sure that this is all learner centered, right? So people can choose, hey, I don't really like reading, I'm going to watch the video instead.
Mhm.
Or I don't need the video, her explanation made sense, and I looked at the examples and I'm all good. So it's really a
Mm,
kind of choose your adventure situation.
cool. I love it. You and I talked about this before, but I'd love for people to hear it from you directly. Why a workbook instead of another book? So many people write a book and they're like, oh, I've got another one in me and another one in me. You were adamant it's going to be a workbook. Why?
Yeah. Well, I'm more of a lifelong teacher than a lifelong author. I love writing. I do have some other books in mind for what's next, but I've been teaching since I was 23, or even since I was 14, if you include teaching swimming.
Hmm.
But so my whole, MO is kind of like, well, how can this be actually about the people trying to learn. And with writing, it's a skill-based topic. It's not conceptual only. You actually have to do it. And it's kind of like if someone were to say, hey, Erin, can you play this song on the piano? I'm not going to get there by looking at the song and thinking about the song and having a teacher say things about the song. I'm going to get there by getting it into my muscle memory. And so it's more, even, I think even more empowering than a book in some cases can be a workbook where you can try it right then, feel successful. And then by the time you're back to emailing or whatever it is, the ideas in the book have become part of your habit, which we can't really get only by reading. So I wanted to infuse the practice and also have it just be where someone could feel really confident after doing a set of 10 practice exercises on the same topic, because so many people tell me, I am afraid about writing, I'm nervous about writing. And so to feel confident, it really helps to have that practice.
You know, I love that. And what comes up for me too is I'm currently doing the same thing as it's kind of like an ongoing and forever journey to try to learn Spanish.
Right.
And so I have these workbooks, where you do translations and exercises or, write sentences and so forth. And I think in my head as a learner, I always had this expectation that, practice isn't any good unless you do a whole bunch of it, right? Like, so,
Mhm.
so what I love about your workbook and these other workbooks that I've been using is like, obviously the more practice, the better, right? As long as you're practicing effectively, but more practice does mean more proficiency, but it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And so even just a couple of
Yep.
sentences, a couple of, reworking fragments or what have you, a little bit can go a long way,
Right.
and a long way in just your mental motivation too.
Well, exactly, because it's so hard to feel motivated when we don't feel any kind of success about something. I mean, I'm the worst at that, right? Where I'm like, oh, I think I'm bad at this. Now I don't want to do it, right? And so
Mm,
I think that gets into how we get in our heads about writing. It's very easy to be afraid because we've grown up thinking of writing as a way we get judged. And so it's easy to get in our heads. But if we can feel successful, like you said, someone could read a concept in a couple paragraphs, look at a before and after example that I put there, and then they could just do a couple of them and go, oh, look at me, I totally get it.
mm.
So it builds confidence, which is actually also what we need to be effective communicators, is to feel confident in our strategies and have them ready to use at any time.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that I love about your approach to writing, because I'm always like, you're teaching communication. We both agree on that. But
Right.
obviously, you've got a very specific type of outcome that you're focusing towards. But what I appreciate about your whole kind of spin on and emphasis on high value writing is less and less is more, concise is nice, a simplified message, focusing on your reader
Right.
is I keep coming across, how fluid our language is and how fluid
Mm.
languages are. Like I'm discovering it as I'm learning another language. I'm seeing how successive generations evolve my own language to adapt to their
Yes.
needs. And
Right.
what's cool about your programs and your messages that it accommodates that, right? It leaves room for that.
Right.
You may not be teaching, excuse me, the latest slang or vernacular, but you are teaching the importance of concise and clarity and so forth. So, even if
Right.
somebody might challenge, our current way of business writing or what have you, uh, for the reasons of language fluidity, like your
Mhm.
overarching message is fluid,
Well,
simple. Well, you tell us. I'm
yeah, I mean, the
putting words in your mouth.
fluidity can be part of it. Language evolves, it's dynamic. The book is, none of my work is about rules.
Mm,
It's more about thinking and how can I be empowered to make choices in my writing that I know will help me achieve my goal. And sometimes that might mean including more casual language, right? There is not one correct way to do our business writing. It will always depend on the situation and who's going to read it. So
mm,
you're right. It's great because as language evolves and continues to change and we use things differently, we can make those decisions and say, I'm going to bring that into my business writing because I know that that will make sense for this particular group of readers, right? So
mm.
we're always kind of analyzing the situation, pivoting, and then pulling out what are the strategies that would help in this situation. according to how I've figured it out. So it's really all about any of us, we're all writers. We all have to write emails and messages. But how can we do it in a way where we've made decisions that we feel are going to be effective? And then we actually get to get things like hearing back from our reader with a response, right? Or they follow up on the
Mm,
action we asked for instead of ignoring us or whatever it might be. But yeah, that's part of it. Is it's okay for culture and language to ebb and flow. We can use things differently for different reasons with different people. We can code switch. And the
mm.
book accounts for that as well, with some of the chapters that are more about relational aspects of writing.
Yeah, I love it. And it also kind of reinforces that, like you said, there's rules and that's not what this is about, but there are agreements, right? One of the things that we as coaches talk about all the time is, making agreements with each other. It's not
Mhm.
it's not that there's rules or expectations per se, there may be, but you can make agreements with each other, and that's what your work is all about, is like
Right.
I'm making an agreement that this is the outcome I want to get, or this is what I really want to achieve, or what I want you to do. You're
Yeah.
making the agreement to participate based on how well I've been able to, you know, uh, convey my message and or
Mhm.
create a call to action or convince you. So yeah, I just love that it's not about following particular rules. It's about us both getting
Right.
what we want
Yeah,
together.
because nobody ever really tells us, but writing can and I think should be goal oriented. It's what you just said. This is so I can get what I want. We just don't know that, right? In school, it's like write this thing and don't mess up or you're going to lose a point. But in reality, our writing is to help us meet a goal or accomplish something, right? I've got to tell someone this information, and if they agree with me, I'm going to meet my goal. Or
Hmm.
I've got to disagree with this person and make sure they know I disagree, but still maintain trust. Those are my goals for this
Yeah.
message I'm writing.
Ah,
And that's how we approach it. That's how I approach it in the workbook is what is your goal? Let's go out and get it by making intentional choices in your writing
nice.
and
I
communication.
Yeah. Well, and I laugh because I'm thinking of, all those papers we had to write in school where it's like, 1,000 words. And it's like,
Ugh.
why 1,000? Why was that the magic number? And, look, I get it. There probably is somewhere a book or a body of work or, a methodology that says it will create this or it will do this. That was never quite explained to me if that's the case. But it's like,
Right.
can you imagine how powerful it would be? I know you can. I'm speaking rhetorically, like how powerful it would be. It's like, not that I need you to write a paper that's 1,000 words. It's I need you to write a paper that convinces me to do, or something like that. And imagine the person who spends 1,015 words doing that, but mission accomplished, and the person who says I can do that in 12 words. And if you can, mission accomplished, right?
Right. Which is
Yeah.
often the case,
Yeah.
because many of us felt so pressured to write more that we just got good at writing words that aren't meaningful, right? Fluff.
Mm,
And trying to meet a word count that feels artificial leads to that kind of thing, right? And so now we have to remember we don't have a teacher suggesting how long something should be. We don't have a teacher giving us a rubric or an assignment sheet that says what to do. We now have to decide that ourselves by looking
mhm.
at the situation. And so at work, you're kind of like, all right, who's going to read this? What am I trying to get done? What do I want them to think and feel? And then we can start writing to make sure you're meeting that goal, that interpersonal goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We could go on, and fortunately for me, I get to have more conversations with you, but we're keeping these check-ins short.
Yes.
So, real quick, I'm going to include your contact information in the episode description, in the clip description here. It's not a podcast episode, Paul. Anyway, I'm going to include your contact info, but you've got some updates. You want to tell folks, in addition to your kind of everyday places they can contact you, where else would you like to send them?
Yeah, well, there are a couple different ways to get the workbook specifically because we felt like, not everybody likes to read and learn in the same way. So it is up on Amazon and you can go grab the print copy or the ebook real easily on Amazon. But also on the High Value Writing website book page, there are a couple other options. So if you are kind of like, I like the idea of practicing, but I'm not one for a pen and pencil, and you want to type, on the website, there's a fillable PDF version, same
Mm,
exact book, but you do the typing instead of the writing. And then we also have bulk order options and best of all, coupons. They don't work for Amazon. I am not the boss of them. They work for the website though. So if you want a fillable PDF or you want to order through the website, you can get 20% off with Write Smarter. the
Mhm.
goal, like write smarter, not harder.
Okay, nice.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, so good catching up with you. Thanks for coming back. And I know it's
happy
been a
to.
while.
Yeah,
And it just looks like you've continued to lean into the journey that you were talking to us about on episode 11. So
doing my best.
I
Yep.
see you continuing to grow and evolve in your business and continuing to challenge yourself the way you were previously talking to us.
Right. Well,
Nice.
thanks. Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for having me, Paul. It's always a joy.
Yeah. And if you haven't listened to episode 11 yet, then I highly recommend. There'll be a link back to it in the description here. So,
Great.
um, Erin, have a great rest of your week. I'll be talking to you soon.
You too. Thanks, Paul.